We'll wait for a couple of minutes to people to join. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining. We are just waiting for a couple of more people to join, and then probably we'll start next couple of minutes. So we'll start in a minute. Hello, everyone. Welcome all, and thanks for joining today's webinar, which is Raise Your Cloud Security Posture. The webinar is hosted by Umbrella InfoCare, AWS, and Checkpoint. My name is Vaibhav, and I look after the business development at Umbrella InfoCare. And it's my privilege to host this webinar on behalf of Umbrella InfoCare. I will quickly introduce our speakers for today's session. So our first speaker is Mr. Ravindra Ved. Ravindra is a seasoned professional, and he's carrying like 20 plus years of experience into cloud technology domain. Currently, he's associated with Amazon Web Services, and in his current role, he's leading the solution architect for security practice. Our next speaker is Mr. Ashish Tandon. Ashish is leading the business development piece at Checkpoint for India and SAARC region. He has more than 19 years of experience into business development, cloud technology, and digital transformation space. Our last speaker for today's session is Mr. Deepak Dhal. Deepak is lead solution architect at Umbrella InfoCare, and he is responsible for delivering solutions for the enterprise customers at Umbrella InfoCare. We also have Mr. Chetan Krishna. He's partner solution architect, and he would be the moderator for today's session. And last but not the least, at the end of this webinar session, there are a few exciting gifts for some of you. It will totally depend on like how excitingly you are going to participate during the poll session and the question and answer session. And there are exciting gifts at the end of the webinar. As I mentioned, apart from that, there's a 1 month POC from Dome9 from the Checkpoint site on Dome9 on AWS, which was like $2,925 for 1 month for the assessment for our customer. That two things that is going to basically benefit our customer at the end of the session, and obviously the insights that's been shared by the industry professionals at this session. Now I would like to hand over the session to Ravindra to take the discussion forward. Thanks everyone once again for joining.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Deepak. Good afternoon, everyone. I'll just share my screen. Give me a moment. Just a quick check. Deepak, is my screen visible?
Yeah, Vaibhav this side, Ravindra. It's
Sorry,
visible.
Web.
Yeah, it's visible.
Thank you. Yep. Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. The session that we are going to cover today is about raising the cloud security posture, and I'm going to cover a few fundamentals of how do you get started in this journey and what are the different mechanisms that needs to be thought through. To begin with, yes, the first foundation piece is the shared responsibility model, something that is very important for either the implementation partner or for the customer to understand that security, when you look from a cloud perspective, is a shared responsibility model. There are two parts to it. One is security of the cloud, and second is security in the cloud. The security of the cloud is something which is managed by AWS, which covers the physical location security, securing the hardware, securing the up to the hypervisor level, the basic networking. As you go beyond that, that goes into the realm of customers, and then the security becomes the responsibility of the customers to make sure that there is a right configurations, there are no misconfigurations, the structures are created in a right way. These lines, while do get blurred depending on what kind of services is being used. So let me go to the next slide. So the line of the security of the cloud and security in the cloud varies, and it always goes beyond what security of the cloud is. Depends on if it is an infrastructure services, it's up to the compute layer that is the responsibility of AWS. But if you go and use more container services, you will see that the patching, the networking, the firewall, and the platform and application management becomes the responsibility of AWS, and then above which is the responsibility of the customer. The more further you go in the abstract services, the more responsibility of securing different layers stays with AWS. That frees you in terms of deploying and having a higher velocity in releasing the features. Having said that, and having talked about the shared responsibility model, and we talked about how do we get started with the security posture, the first thing when you log into your AWS account, what you see is the plethora of services that are there, right? And what it might make you wonder, okay, how do I think about security in this place? Where do I get started with? Now, to help you this with that, what we are proposing is that there are simple fundamental patterns that needs to be thought through, and as you start building on those patterns to make sure that from day zero, right? So at AWS we call security as job zero. So this is important that from a day zero onwards, before any workload is created, you make sure that the security posture and the necessary guardrails are in place. And for you to do that, these are the three fundamental services that needs to be leveraged. The first is the IAM, the second is KMS, and the third one is VPC. So with IAM, it is the I stands for the authentication, and it is basically authenticating a human or an application caller. The A and M are for authorizations, which is like powerful, flexible permission language for controlling access to cloud resources. Now, every AWS service uses IAM to authenticate and authorize API calls. And that's why that becomes a fundamental building block. The second comes the KMS. Now, KMS is AWS managed encryption decryption services. And many data handling AWS services offer simple AWS integration, KMS integration. And if you know how to use KMS, you can essentially protect your data at rest simply with very, very minimal management overhead and configuring the KMS in a right way. Further down comes the VPC. VPC is your virtual data center in the cloud. It's the network for your cloud infrastructure where your resources will be provisioned and deployed. And when you deploy cloud infrastructure, your VPC is the network that provides the connectivity to and from the other infrastructure, whether it is hybrid cloud or whether it is on premises. So that becomes your focal point and the boundary of your security, right? Keeping these three fundamental building blocks in mind, uh, there are other set of services, and these services that you see here, which are aligned. So AWS has aligned its security services to this 5 pieces of security pillar of a well-architected framework. A well-architected framework is essentially a collection of the wisdom that AWS gleaned out of its own operations for more than 20 years now. Right, these best practices have been codified in terms of best practices, which are also available to you as a set of questionnaire which you can go through and then assess your workload, your environment, and then configure these set of services to further strengthen your security posture. In the interest of time, I'll not go into the detail of each of these, but do keep in mind that these 5 pillars are essentially the core set of services which we can map it to as you start looking more from an AWS well-architected framework security pillar perspective. If you want to know a little more about that, definitely happy to have a more detailed session on that. I'm sure the folks from Umbrella will be happy to take this discussion further. Moving along, and the fact that we are talking about the fundamental security posture here, we talked about IAM, the users. Let's talk a little more about VPC and also see how other elements which we have from a partner network like Checkpoint will also integrate in ensuring that you have got a strong security posture. Just a quick recap for folks who might be a little new here. The VPC essentially is what we discuss is your virtual data center in the cloud. And when you provision your account, you first select a region where you want to create your or place your workloads. Now that region is essentially a geographic boundary where your data resides, right? Your data will never leave a geographic boundary. Every region essentially, when you're creating any of those VPCs, the region essentially has a set of one or more availability zones. Now, Now, your data which are stored in the region, as I said, will never leave these regions. And these availability zones are essentially a multiple isolated locations within the regions. Uh, when you spin up a VPC, it's essentially covers the availability zones that have been in which you have spin up the VPC, and it gives you the inter connectivity between those network. Uh, the creation of VPC is very similar to how you will carve out your on-premise network. You will have to think about the CIDR range. You will have to think about there is no overlapping, and then you will carve it out into subnets. Definitely, you will have public subnets which will go to the internet via internet gateway, and you will have private subnets which essentially do not have a public route. Why am I saying all this? I'm saying all this because there are two fundamental things that needs to be taken care of when you're designing VPC. So if you do not get the implementing details this far, it is absolutely fine. What you need to understand is when the team is configuring, there are two important pieces of VPC that needs to be taken care of. The first that needs to be taken care of is, we call it as a security group. Now, security group is essentially, think of it as a firewall at an instance level, which tells you which ports will be open and the traffic will be allowed. Rest everything will be blocked. So that's the first thing that you need to configure around your resources. And the second is essentially the route. How is your traffic flowing? Your traffic shaping is very important. How your traffic is going to flow in different environments, or what is the route that your traffic is taking. If you have got these two fundamental pieces correct, essentially you have started with a strong foundation to begin with. Again, there are different workloads. What we talk about these foundation one, for the workloads which are more complex, which needs to scale across and have different security requirements of isolations and segregation of duties, you will use different construct of AWS, like AWS organizations, multiple account, multiple VPCs. That's what are typically used. And I'll just run you through a quick higher view overview of the reference architecture, where you have got multiple VPCs for your development, production, testing, or shared services. Right now, each of these can be the same account in a different account. That depends on the topology that you have designed. Essentially, what we are saying is that once you have created these a set of VPCs, either in same or separate accounts, which is what we recommend as a part of AWS organizations, you then need the connectivity. Now, that connectivity is essentially so if it is a small setup, then you can very well go with something known as VPC peering. But as you have multiple VPCs and your workloads start scaling out, we suggest that you use something known as a transit gateway. And again, like we talk about the VPC, the fundamentals is about the route tables. Make sure that you've got the right route tables configured here. If you want to connect to your on-premises via VPN or a direct connect, and then you would have placement of your a traffic shaping in terms of what is inbound, what is outbound, and you will have a separate environment where you want to route your traffic for IDS, IPS, or a firewall, or a next generation firewall setup. This is just a reference architecture, and as we are talking, keep an eye on upcoming gateway load balancer. It makes it easy to deploy, scale, manage any third-party appliances, and it gives you a gateway for distributing traffic across multiple virtual appliances, which can then scale up and down based on your demands. So this essentially eliminates the points of failures in your network and help you increase the availability. Having said that, and I just got a minute more before I hand it over to the team. Uh, this makes you wonder, what are the areas where I need to think, and how do I, which use cases would I need where I need to think about firewall? While AWS provides you with security group and NACLs, right? There are use cases where you will need a next generation firewalls or a deeper packet inspections. Now let's talk quickly about the different use cases here. You would need firewall. The typical use cases that we have seen are some of these, where you've got compliance requirements for IDS in your VPCs, where you need firewall for traffic between running your VPCs, or you have got that requires an application application level inspections? Would you like to centralize your security appliances, any traffic? So these are essentially the use cases that will set up for your firewall. Um, so this is what I wanted to cover in the session for now, and we have more insights onto how do you configure these firewalls and what are the other best practices around next generation firewall, which Ashish will be covering later on. So yeah, thank you. And if there are any questions, please keep on coming. We'll make sure that we are answering them. Thank you.
Thanks, Ravindra. So end of the presentation, like we are going to do one poll. So
Sure.
probably all of you can answer, and then probably we can share the results by end of the session. So I'm just launching the poll. We will have 30 seconds to answer both the questions. So thanks everyone for participating in the first poll. Ravindra, would you like to share the answer for both the questions? And then probably Ashish will take it forward. Ravindra, you there?
Yeah, sorry, I kept it on mute. I'm not sure if I can see the answers, but let me give the final answers here. The answer for the first one, which is AWS is a shared responsibility model. It's a responsibility model. And the second one is the two aspect which you really need to know about the VPCs are the security groups and route tables.
Thanks, Ravindra. Ashish, over to you.
All right, thank you, Ravindra. That was a great insight into AWS security and how we can really go about securely innovating on AWS, right? Because that's what all the customers on the call here are doing. So let me now share what Checkpoint does as a partner in this endeavor with AWS and with Umbrella, right? So this is a slight repeat of what Ravindra said, right? And essentially, there is a big responsibility for the customer to play when it comes to securing the network, the virtual private cloud that really you're creating, especially when it comes to an IaaS model, right? And there's also a very interesting observation by Gartner, right, which I think we can kind of correlate to that, right? Because it says that 99% of all cloud security failures up to the year 2025 will be because of some mistake that the customer is making, right? So that's a big statement, and obviously we come in to ensure that there is that doesn't happen, and that customers are able to safely and securely innovate on areas like on AWS, because really in this age of if 2020 has shown us anything, I think it's the fact that we have to do even more on cloud, right? And we have to do even more on AWS. So how do we secure that? So for those who haven't heard of us, Checkpoint as a company has been around for more than 26 years. We're a pure cybersecurity company, and our motto is we secure your everything, right? So we secure your cloud, we secure your data center, we secure your your mobile devices, anything that has got to do, or for that matter, your IoT devices, right? We secure all of that for you, right? So when it comes to cloud security, right, we have what we call the CloudGuard cloud native platform, right? And this is meant to give you that end-to-end security that you require, and it's meant to make it easy and make it uniform for you, regardless of whether you're using IaaS services, whether you're using PaaS services, or for that matter, if you are on multi-cloud, you should be able to get the same consistent level of security, right? And then there are three things which are really fundamental to what we do for cloud security. The first thing that you'll see here is we talk about high fidelity security context. So what does that mean, right? Cloud is, I mean, AWS is an amazing environment, right? So you're able to do so many services, and in fact, there's a very nice, there's a very nice video which shows 190 AWS services in 2 minutes, right? The guy has done a nice little song there for, I think, a company called CloudGuard, right, who trains people on AWS. So the point is, every time there's AWS reInvent, every time there's something, there will be a new service, right? So how do you keep up with that? How do our customers keep up with all this innovation? So the innovation is amazing to pick up, but how do you make sure that you're securing it from day one, right? So when you see these services, you need to make sure that you're able to correlate whether it's your network that you've got, your virtual network, whether it is your services, your PaaS services, your S3 buckets. Everything needs to be secured in a uniform way. And if there is a security incident or there's a security context that you're looking for, all of that should be correlated. So that's number one. Number two, CI/CD and DevOps, right? So the one thing that's happened with cloud, which the security people in the call will appreciate, is we've lost the ability to say two things. We cannot say the words no and stop. This has gone away because CI/CD and DevOps are so fast that if you try and tell somebody that, hey, hold on, I'm going to secure this before you deploy something, developers will not do it. You will not want to do it. When Umbrella does a deployment for you, you will want everything to be seamless, and you have the right to do that, right? And that's what is a core concept for us. So how do you make sure that security is part of your CI/CD and your DevOps, so that it's a natural part of what you do, right? And then the last thing is advanced prevention, right? Because cloud environments are, for good reason, directly, connected to the internet, right? It's meant to give you instant ability to reach out to your customers, to be able to deploy everything, right? Well, that means that you also have to be now even more secure, if not as secure as you were in your data center, as far as your own responsibility is concerned, right? In the shared responsibility model. So that's the third concept that we take very, very seriously. And with that in mind, we have these 5 pillars that we kind of offer to our customers, and they really look at 5 areas that all customers must consider when they look at cloud security. Right? So what's the first thing you did when you have your data center? You put a perimeter around it. You want to make sure that nobody gets in, right? So with AWS, you have the NACLs and the security groups, and you've segmented your environment. You've ensured that only the right IP addresses get in. You know where things are, right? But what happens if a hacker tries to now do protocol tunneling, right? What if a hacker tries to actually break in and find out if you have a vulnerability on one of your web applications, right? And they're trying to maybe even send you a 0-day threat, right? Take an easy example. You're hosting a career site, and somebody can upload a resume, and that resume has a 0-day malware. How do you deal with all that, right? So all of these things are extremely advanced attacks, right? Or for that matter, you could have a bot inside your environment, which is then trying to exfiltrate data out. So if the recent events with the sunburst, with that whole scenario that happened, right? That's shown us that we can't even trust our trusted software, right? We don't know if there's a supply chain attack that's happening inside an environment. So you need to be you need to be aware of it. You need to be able to inspect all of that and stop that, right? That's what the network security piece does for you, right? So it's kind of supercharging the security that you have from a network standpoint on AWS, so that you can now stop the most advanced attacks. Right? So that's that. And of course, if anyone is migrating, they want to make sure that they have the same kind of controls, whether it's IPS, whether it's network antivirus, whether it's forensics that we give you, right? So those kind of things are available. But what happens if you do a very basic misconfiguration on the native AWS controls, right? Because finally the firewall or the network security still sits on that, right? So the simplest example could be that you've got you put in a network firewall, and somebody changes the internet gateway and opens up a new one, right? Maybe for troubleshooting or whatever happens all the time. That would go undetected, right? Or for that matter, you expose an S3 bucket and you're not really aware of it. And it's happened to the best of companies, right? Virgin Media, if I can quote an example, did not know that they have an exposed database for more than 10 months, right? And the fines that they had to pay for GDPR have been through the roof. Um, Happened to Microsoft, right? So they had their own customer database that was exposed for 2 weeks, right? Before they knew, and then they put controls to do it. So the point is that not knowing that you have an exposure is a very easy thing to happen because of the amount of activity that we do on cloud. So how do we make sure that when you're going through on cloud at jet speed and churning out new functionality and capturing new markets, we make sure that we help you put in those guardrails so that people don't make mistakes. Right? Some of you may be wondering, well, that's what we hired Umbrella for, right? So Umbrella are the experts. They're going to do this. Well, you also need to have the ability to communicate a common, agreed upon, security blueprint, right? And that's a problem, right? Because Umbrella knows AWS in and out. They know how to configure it. You may not have those people in your organization. So how do you speak a common language? So what we've done is we've created something called global security language, which is an English-like abstracted language. Right? It's just like writing simple English statements. Now, with these statements, you've not only agreed with Umbrella that these are the things that we're going to enforce in our AWS account, your stakeholders also know about it. And the beauty of it is the tool also helps you enforce them. Right? So I'll talk about this more as we go on. But that's the importance of CSPM. This is the top security project that Gartner tells you to do in 2021. So this is what Vaibhav mentioned at the start of the call. We're offering a free 1-month license. So many customers have already gone ahead with this with Umbrella. So I'll urge you to explore it. You will have a completely different view of your AWS environment as soon as you do that. So that's the area of posture management and network security, and these are really then the two baseline areas in your cloud security, right? But then you're also going to move towards containers and serverless, right? Because this is amazing, right? Today we've never had the ability, serverless especially, right? We've never had the ability of not even having to think about what the infrastructure should look like, right? Just write code and let AWS take care of all the deployment, and I just want to get my functionality, right? The the problem with that kind of a scenario is that there are some very basic hygiene factors which get ignored. Right? Things like how much how much permissions have I provisioned there, right? So over privileged or over provisioned lambdas is something that you need to take care of, right? And it's not an easy thing. You don't know all the time the kind of permissions you need to give to a lambda. The second thing is the lambda can be invoked in any form, right? It can be invoked as a web. It can be invoked as somebody uploading a file. How do you even try to save, or protect at the runtime these kind of lambda environments that they don't get impacted by, say, a SQL injection or something else, right? So today you may put a WAF, but tomorrow you don't know. You might have another way of invoking it. So what we've done is we've really just given you the ability to even to do what's called runtime protection, right? Or runtime application security. So we put a wrapper around your Lambda so that your code now becomes the new perimeter. We are able to block attacks in real time. Uh, at design time, we're able to tell you, or at build time, we're able to tell you if you've done the right permissions. If you don't have the right permissions, we will not only tell you, we will even give you a correction. Right? So that's how good this is. Moving along quickly, there's the web application and API protection, right? And I did a quick LinkedIn post on this today. I think world over, not just Indians, right? Everybody in the world has been looking at WAF and saying, uh, you know, false positives are a way of life, right? Because the nature of your web applications is so dynamic that you will always end up having a false positive, right? So how do you deal with that, right? So first of all, I say to you and I say to everybody, let's drop that term and let's drop that attitude of chalta hai, right? We don't want to do that anymore. There is a way to ensure that today your web applications have a anomaly based detection and prevention, which is a very exciting technology. So this is really the next generation of WAF, what we're calling web application API protection, or WAP for short, right? So this has that same runtime security solution that we give you. But in all of these, and including our container and workload security, what we do is we help you detect if you have vulnerabilities in your code, if you have vulnerabilities in your image, because if you're going on containers now, it's not AWS that's giving you the image, it's you, right? So have you taken care of the security there? And have you taken care of not just vulnerabilities or CVEs in your image, but also malware? Remember the sunburst attack, right? So you've got potentially a malware sitting inside your image which you're not even aware of. So we help you stop all of that, and we do it as part of our shift left portfolio, which means that we will do all of this, or as much of it as possible, as part of your build phase, as part of your CI/CD lifecycle, so that it doesn't even reach your production AWS environment. Right? So that's the stage where we're getting. Um, Last but not least, once you've done all of this, right, you've taken care of your configuration, you put in all these preventions, there will still be some attacks. Maybe it could be somebody's their social engineering and got into one of your credentials, right? Or they're doing things like privilege escalation. So these are some very, very advanced attacks, right? How do you find those out? How do you use the MITRE attack framework? Right? We have 140 attack scenarios laid out for you. So one of the things which again is an underlying theme of everything that we do in CloudGuard is we take the skill required to secure your cloud down to an operation level, right? Because uh, it's not always possible to have the most advanced expert on cloud security monitoring your environment, because um, would you rather have that person in your organization or in umbrella uh, building something new to get you revenue, or would you have them monitoring your environment, right? So obviously the choice is clear. You would probably want them doing something that is revenue generating for you. So this is the thing that we promise, right? So this is why customers like what we're doing, and we're having so much we're driving so much success in this space in the market with umbrella, is that customers appreciate this, and they're able to secure their environment with fewer number of people, with lesser number of experts that are required in their organization to do this, right? All right. By the way, we talked about the innovation that we do with AWS, and Ravindra mentioned this. So I'm going to keep this QR code on for a few seconds. We are always up there. Doesn't matter how new the innovation is from AWS. We're always the number one partner to work with them and start building it out. So Gateway Load Balancer, right from the start when it was announced. We've been there as an integration partner, and you will see us very soon in that space. It's going to radically, reduce the complexity in adding advanced network security. So very excited about this announcement and our participation in this program. Right. So you'll see that joint collaboration that we have with AWS all the time. Right? So very quickly, I'll talk about the advanced prevention. Right? What does it mean? So I talked about some of this, but just to put it on a picture, right? So especially when you move from your data center, you had all, if not some of the some if not all of these features, right? So you definitely had IPS, you had anti-bot, URL filtering, DLP, application control, VPN, right? And for that matter, the zero-day threat prevention and forensics, right? These are all features that we bring in as an additional component on top of the NACL and the security group network prevention that AWS gives you, right? And again, I don't know if this is blocking the QR code. I'll just take that away. This is a QR code in case you want to look at it. This is we've put together a very comprehensive set of architectures that are available for you. So rest assured, whether it is transit gateway, whether it is a gateway load balancer, which is the new kid on the block, right? All of these innovations, all of these network architectures that AWS has, we will help you adapt those best practices inside your environment, and we'll be there as your security partner, right? And if anyone who's not able to scan this, let me know. I'll share the link separately. Very quickly moving on, right? So the three things that we do is we have we say security or automated everywhere, right? So I'll try and wrap up very soon. So this is very important, right? This is what we do all the time. Okay, so this is at the heart of what we're doing. So a quick view: this is the product that you're going to get the 2-month subscription for. You have to experience it. It visualizes your network. It gives you the ability to put in active protection. So the fact that Ravindra said, that if you put in data into the India region, it will stay there. But uh, how do you make sure that no one actually went out and created something in another region, right? So protections like that, protections against your well architected framework. Ravindra mentioned that you can do a full day interview. By the way, if you contact Umbrella, they'll do the security review of WAR, of well architected framework review, in less than 1 hour. Right? That's the level of automation that we've taken it to, right? The next thing is the threat hunting. So if you've ever seen your VPC flow logs and your CloudTrail, uh, after you see it in this tool, you will never want to see it like that again, right? This is full visualization of your network and your user behavior to find out immediately if there are any anomalies, if there are any malicious requests inside your environment, and it makes it child's play to be able to go out and do this, right? No expert required. Serverless, I talked to this about this earlier, right? So again, same thing, full visualization, full ability to protect it at runtime, right? And make sure that there are no vulnerabilities. You put it all together, this is what it looks like, right? So you've got posture management, you've got your network security, you've got intelligence and threat hunting all put together into one single platform, right? um, and this is the offer that we're giving you, so please do let us know. I think we'll do a poll at the end of the session. We will help you. We will not only give away a month's of license, which is close to $3,000, but we'll also help you adopt it, right? That's our promise, together with Endeavor. So with that, I'll stop now, and happy to address if there are any questions, but if not, I'll hand over back to Weber.
Thank you, Ashish, for the wonderful insights. I'll quickly launch one more poll session for our audience, and you all have 30 seconds to answer the question. Just a moment.
I think it's the same question again, Vaibhav. Sorry, I think you might have to.
I think no, this is
No,
different.
it's different. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's
different.
different. Yes.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you everyone for the participation. Ashish, I would request you to please answer both the questions, and then we'll move forward to our next session.
All right. I think I got these questions mixed up, so I'll just answer them towards the end of the presentation now.
Sure, sure. Deepak, over to you.
All right. Yeah. Thank you, Vaibhav. Let me just share my screen. Yeah, is my screen visible to all?
Yes, Deepak, it's visible.
All right, yeah. All right, so hi all. I'll be presenting the last section of the webinar today, and which is around umbrellas, security offerings, and best practices that we follow and recommend to our customers, to improve the security posture of their environment. Let me just see, if is it running in the presentation mode?
No,
Yeah, Deepak, if you can just make it full screen. You can go to the right bottom. Yeah. Before that. Must before this. Yeah, this one. Yeah, left.
This one, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. So, before I talk about the security and everything, I would like to take a quick couple of minutes to brief about Umbrella InfoCare. I know, most of you are Umbrella's existing managed services, customers, but it'll just be a, recap for you. So, we are born in the cloud company, started off in 2013. Have had 100% year-on-year growth since then, both in terms of revenue and size of the organization, keeping aside the last year because of the pandemic situation. Okay. We have a technical team of around 150 plus people, have an experience of doing 500 plus deployments for around 300 plus customers. Okay. We are an AWS Premier Consulting partner, having competencies in DevOps, Microsoft workloads, migration, MSP, and well-architected review. So the 500 plus deployments that I was talking about, those are spread across these 6 key offerings from our side. Right? So I'm going to start with the right, and then I'll move to the left. Okay. So when we started off in 2013, we were primarily focusing on cloud migration, and interestingly, we did only 3-4 migrations in the first year. And today we are doing around 7-8 deployments in a month. So that also shows that how much cloud market has evolved for the last few years, right? Soon after, we added the managed services, and today we have a large managed services team handling workload for around 100 plus customers. Then we added the cloud native app development service, and today we have a strong team around that, who helps customers to modernize their apps, or build a fresh cloud native app for them. Okay. About the big data service, we have deep skills in building data lakes, data ingestion, transformation, analytics, etc. And this is one of the fastest growing area for us. Now these central piece, DevOps and security, and these are kept in center intentionally, because these are, centric. These are the foundational services for, whatever deployment we are doing. Okay. So if I talk about, some of the things that we do in DevOps are infra as code, automation of configuration management, application release management, containerization, orchestration, etc. And then, the topic for today, security services. These are, the foundational services. Whichever deployment we are doing, there are some non-negotiable security practices that we follow. Okay, and we recommend to our customer. Okay. Now, I'll be talking about specifically the security services we offer. Okay. Starting with the cloud security assessment. Okay. In which, we identify the key misconfigurations. This is the term, it's being used in almost every session, right? The security misconfigurations. And we tell about the risks and the missing controls in your environment. Okay. Next is the advisory service, which includes, the advisory on the design, architecture, and remediations configurations. Okay. Next is the security implementation, in which, we implement the various tools and services that we identify during the assessment stage. Okay. Some customers may have already identified the tools themselves, and they engage us just for its implementation. Uh, then the security automation. With this ever-changing environment, it's very important to remain continuously compliant. Okay, and that is where, automation helps in identifying the gaps and, auto remediating them as soon as they are detected. Okay. And then finally, the managed services support for security, in which, we provide 24/7 monitoring and ongoing management according to your changing business needs and, your technical needs. Okay. So these are, the security services that offer, generally it goes, in a sequential flow. But if there is a customer who has already, who's already at some stage, and he wants to engage us at a later stage, we can pick it up from there also. Okay. Then, we've been talking about the security offerings, security tools, etc. Right? But the misconfiguration part, that I was talking about, why, configuring the security tools and services is more important, right? This is one of the quote, like Ashish also mentioned about it, that through 2022, at least 95% of the cloud security failures will be the customer's fault. By 2025, it is estimated at around 99%, right? And according to another survey conducted by IDC on 300 CISOs around the world, leading cause of cloud security breaches is security misconfiguration, followed by the lack of adequate visibility into your access settings and activities, and then the IAM permission errors. Okay, so it's really important to understand the risk involved with the configurations and the best practices around that, which we can follow. So I'll be talking about the best practices that we follow and recommend to our customers, so that these security breaches can be avoided. Okay. So these are the security epics that we work on. All the security practices are spread across these epics, and these are aligned to the AWS security best practices also. IAM, detective controls, infrastructure security, data protection, and incident response. So we'll be talking about each of the section in detail in the subsequent slides. So starting with the IAM, okay, and IAM is one of the most important security area. The reason is it can be an easy entry point for all the malicious activities. So we encourage our customers to deploy IAM best practices. Some of them, I've mentioned over here that first and foremost is your root account. You shouldn't use the root account for day-to-day activities. You should enable MFA on it. And the reason for that is, if your root account is compromised, then the hacker has the highest authority to do anything in your account. So it's very important to, secure your root account. Another best practice is to follow the least privileges principle. So usually what we have seen in our customers environment that and it's a human tendency also to provide full access to a service during the testing, and then people usually forget about it, and it remains like that, and which leads to a security breach, right? So just to give an example, if you want a user to access one particular folder in an S3 bucket, so you should create a proper granular level IAM policy or a bucket policy, rather than giving an S3 full access permission to the user, right? Um, Another misconfiguration that we have seen is storing your secret keys in the code, okay, and then keeping that in a public repo. This is a serious misconfiguration. Okay, so rather you should use IAM roles to delegate permissions, so that you get temporary credentials which keeps on getting rotated periodically. Okay. Another best practice is to federate your accesses to a centralized ID provider, right? It could be your corporate Active Directory or any other IDP like Okta, OneLogin, etc. So this will make your life easier as an admin to manage all the users and groups at one place. Okay. Another advantage it brings is when a user leaves the organization, you need to delete the user account from one place only, and all his accesses will be revoked automatically. Few more best practices around AWS organization service control policies you can use to keep your IAM more secure. Okay. And lastly, whatever accesses you have provided, you should audit that periodically. There are various services, native services from IAM which you can use. IAM Access Analyzer. There is, service from Checkpoint also, which can help you give a centralized view on your, IAM accesses. The next area is the detective controls. Okay. And these are the mechanisms that helps you diagnose the issue, or even detect a potential threat even before it affects your environment. So the very first thing that helps you in troubleshooting is your logs, right? So the logs should be enabled at all the levels, such as your CloudTrail logs, your config logs, your VPC flow logs, your ALB access logs, your OS level logs, your application level logs, right? So these are some of the non-negotiable practices that I mentioned that we follow and recommend to our customer, right? So, and moreover, the logs you can move to a centralized store such as S3 or Elasticsearch, so that they can be queried and analyzed as and when required, right? But the logs can help you to troubleshoot an issue which has already occurred, right? But more important is whether we can avoid that issue to happen, right? And that is where you need proactive monitoring, the detection, right? And that you can do using various tools like Amazon Guard Duty, Detective, for the threat detection and all, right? You can use a SIM tool also for that. Moving on to the next security area, which is the infrastructure security. Okay. And that needs to be applied at various levels, such as your network, your operating system, your applications, right? So if I talk about the network, so first of all, you need to design your foundational building block of your network, which is, VPC in the case of AWS, right? So key point here is to reduce your attack surface area, which you can do by, hardening your security group rules, by deploying your app and DB instances in private subnets only, right? And then making them available only via some VPN or direct connect, or some sort of private connectivity. Now you can use VPC endpoints to access your AWS services. You can deploy a WAF and DDoS protection solution for that, right? You can enforce service level permissions, that which all services can be used by a particular set of users. Okay. So after network, we have the OS and application. So if I talk about that, the most important is your operating system hardening, right? That you can do as per the CAS benchmarks and the compliance requirement of your organization. Okay. Another thing is to patch your vulnerabilities. Whatever vulnerabilities you find in your operating system, that should also be patched. For vulnerability assessment, you can use tools like Amazon Inspector. Okay. So to improve your OS and app layer security further, you can use anti-malware or some IDS IPS solution, from the AWS marketplace, right? For application security, you should scan your code and patch the vulnerabilities. Then next is very important, from today's perspective, that automation, whatever automation you can do, that will be very beneficial. You should automate your infra provisioning, your build and test, and your application release management. All this automation will help you avoid the human errors, which can lead to a security breach, right? One more important aspect is continuous compliance, which ensures that your environment remains compliant all the times. And whenever there is a deviation, from a defined state, it should detect it and auto remediate it. Okay, so that is another thing which we follow and recommend. Next is your data protection. Needless to say, data is the most valuable asset in the world, right? So it's very important to secure it. But the another thing is that you first of all, you need to classify your data, right? And have clear visibility that what is your most critical data, which needs to have the highest level of security and protection, right? So the example could be some sort of PII data, credit card information, your secrets, passwords, which could be stored in your S3 bucket. So at least you should have the visibility that what all data is stored in your storage, right? So you can use Amazon Messi for data classification. So once your critical data is identified, then you need to verify the accessibility options and ensure that only the least privilege is provided only to the relevant stakeholders, right? Another very important aspect to protect your data is encryption, both for data at rest and for your data in transit. Okay. Another important strategy we recommend to our customer is to keep people away from data. That rather than giving direct access on your data or your database, right? We recommend to create dashboards, right? Dashboards or some other web console or something to see various views of your application, right? Rather than giving direct access to database, which could be less secure, right? So this is the final security area, incident response, but it's equally important, right? And it tells about how prepared are you to handle a security incident and restore it to the normal operations at the earliest. So the recommended best practice for this is all your security services tools should be in place. All the relevant teams should have pre-provisioned access on these tools. And most important is you should test all this by doing mock drills. In AWS terms, we call it game days, right? So in a game day, where you intentionally add some misconfiguration in the system and see how quickly your tools pick it and restore to previous configuration. Okay, so this is how you can be prepared for an incident, for a security incident. Okay. Now that brings me to the last slide of today's presentations, right? These are the key takeaways. Now that you have heard from Ravinder about the AWS shared responsibility model, AWS baseline controls. Then from Ashish, you heard about the capabilities of Checkpoint and how it can be integrated with various AWS services, right? And then you so the umbrellas offerings, and then how we ensure that using the AWS native tools and partner services like Checkpoint, we ensure that the security posture of the customer's environment is improved. Okay. So now after all these presentations, you can identify that where you stand in your cloud security journey, right? Whether you want your environment to be assessed from scratch, or maybe you have already identified the tools which are all which you want to be deployed, right? Or maybe you have everything set up and you just want someone to monitor and manage it for you, right? So that is where you need to identify that where you are in your security journey, and then you can get in touch with your respective account manager and start your journey. So with that, I'll be handing it back to Vaibhav, and if there are any questions, we'll try to answer them.
Thanks, Deepak. Thanks for your inputs. Now we have come down to our last poll, audience poll, and then I'll hand over the session to Chetan for the panel questions and the audience questions.
Hey Vaibhav, do you want me to announce the answers to the previous one? Sorry, I couldn't read it at that
So
time.
Ashish, I would request you to allow the answers of both the polls once this poll will conclude.
All right.
That would be great. So just a moment. So you all have 30 seconds to conclude this poll. Thank you everyone for your participation. Now I would like Ashish to share his inputs on both the polls, and then probably Chetan will take over for the panel and audience questions. Ashish,
okay, thank you. So the question was, just to repeat the question of the previous poll, there was 3 foundational patterns for baseline security are IAM, KMS, VPC. So the answer is yes, right? All 3 are the foundational patterns. The second question was the 2 key aspects of VPC that you need to know from a security standpoint. So the answer is A, which is security group and routing, right? Now the question on CloudGuard CSPM. So we have the how many rules do we have? So the answer is B. 2,000 plus. In fact, there are 2,400 booths as we talk about today. So governing your environment. And the last question was, what are the 5 components of CloudGuard? So the answer is A, which is network security, CSPM, container and serverless security, web application and API protection, WAP, and cloud intelligence and threat hunting, CITH. So the answer again there was A.
Thanks, Ashish. Over to you, Chetan.
Hey, thanks, Vaibhav. Just a quick mic check. Am I audible?
Yes, Chetan.
Awesome. I would request if the panelists are able to come on the camera as well. It'll be good for the audiences to connect. Thanks, Ashish. And by the way, great session. Quite a lot of content in there, and aptly so, because with security, you always have to be at the top of your game, and there's quite a lot of things to cover. So we definitely have the right experts on the panel here. We have Ashish, Deepak, and Ravi, a security specialist from AWS as well. So I would also request the audience, in case they have any questions, to also post it in here. I have a few questions that I would like to grill the panel on. But yeah, request the audience, if they have any specific questions, they can put it up in the Q&A panel as well. So I'll probably start with the audience question itself. Right? I think that's always good to answer the questions that have come up based on the content that you have presented. So one of the questions that came about in Deepak's presentation, as we were talking about preventive controls, and we also spoke about detective controls. And I believe on the detective, you highlighted AWS Security Hub and Guard Duty. So one of the questions from the participant is, how does this detective controls help, right? If you can kind of shed some details on this, either Deepak or Ravi, if you want to pick it up.
Sure, I can take that up. So fundamentally, so you start with creating a good baseline. You create a standard foundation baseline where you create a preventive controls. Now, let's take example of preventive controls. You essentially first do not give permission or give excessive permission for the things which are not required for the role, right? Putting the guardrails in place. Say, for example, you are creating AWS organizations, then you need to set up service control policies. Or if you are creating user roles, you need to give very fine-grained access control. So these are this comes in the set of your preventive controls. Having said that, when you are in an operations, right, there can be there is a possibility that there is a attack, say example, that happened at layer 7. Right, or there is an insider threat, right? Now what you need is a detective control, right? These detective controls is where example guard duty comes in. Essentially, what is guard duty? It's a threat detection service that would monitor for any malicious activity that is happening or any unauthorized behavior that you are seeing. Example, SSH brute force that is happening in your system, or if there is a malware and it's making a network connections across different environments. So this is where the detective controls comes in place. So you start with so to make it short, you start with preventive controls. That's how you configure it, and then you deploy detective controls to look for any of these anomalies.
Great, thanks for the explanation, Ravi.
Yeah.
Right. So before I can get to my questions, there is one more question from the audience. We can probably take that up as well. Can checkpoint? This is for Ashish. So can checkpoint help in DDoS protection, right? And WAF. When they say WAF, I assume they're talking about layer 7 protection. Can checkpoint help in there? And what is the mechanism available in checkpoint for WAF and DDoS?
Absolutely. So look, DDoS is something that we've had for a long time, and we can kind of talk about it. We partner with some of the best people in this space, because we see the DDoS really moving more to your CDN layers. So we don't tell you to come and work with us. You might work with an Akamai or anybody else that wants to do that, but we have our own DDoS and we can offer it to you and run it inside your AWS environment. right? Both options are available. But WAF is when I think it's getting very, very exciting, right? So um, this is an area where people have lived with the fact that you cannot do away with false positives, right? This is a fundamental problem that people are living with on a daily basis. So dynamic applications have so many changes that every time you make a change, you have to go back and fine tune your WAF, right? So that the genuine requests don't get blocked. And this is not something that's very productive in today's environment, because you want to make quick changes. You want to be able to have a very dynamic application. You'll also have APIs, right? We live in the API economy today. So we have the ability to not only protect these applications without writing a single rule, right? We also have the ability to automatically baseline your environment and then only block the requests which are really malicious. So this is something that is game changing, and I would encourage you to try it out. By the way, with the trial that we gave, that we're talking about with CSPM, this is included in that. So just so you know. I hope that answered the question.
Sure, Ashish, there's a follow-up on that one. I'm not sure what is the depth that we can go into, but are there any kind of key differences between the checkpoint WAF and the AWS WAF that is available?
That's a nuanced question. We'll kind of take it offline.
Sure.
AWS WAF is a fantastic product. We really have to understand what you're trying to do, right? So if you're really trying to do dynamic things where you want that kind of zero rule protection, which is what we're talking about, then there are strategies to combine, and everything that we do is complementary to AWS, is what I can say.
Sure. So yeah, definitely there's quite a lot of details that we'll have to go into that, and probably as someone from the team will reach out to understand your use case and probably explain that better to you. So yeah, good. The audience, please keep it coming if you have any further questions. In the meanwhile, I have a question for you, Ashish. There was quite a lot of content that you presented to us, right? And we all understand that for customer, their cloud environment is very, very critical these days, right? So if you have to summarize, right, in say 2 minutes, what are the key steps, right, considering the shared responsibility model that the customers have to ensure for the security of their critical cloud assets?
That's actually a great question, right? Now, it's also in context of the fact that we're talking here today with Umbrella, right? Which means that customers have decided that they need an expert like Umbrella to run their AWS environment, right? What is their responsibility in this kind of an environment, right? Does it mean that once you've handed over everything to Umbrella, it's done? So the answer is no, right? Because you can have the best practices, you can do automation, you can ensure that there's little or no misconfiguration. But as we know, cloud is an operational environment, right? It's a living environment. There are changes that happen every day. There are ad hoc things that we have to do every day. So what customers need to do is to take ownership of their security policy. We're not talking about owning the security of their environment, because that's the reason we've outsourced to an expert like Umbrella. How do you own the security policy of your cloud? And this is where we fundamentally help them, right? We bridge the gap between what an expert like Umbrella knows and what a customer knows about their environment. So to give you an example, first access key, right? This is something that gets created every time you create a new account. There's a first access key. And for anyone who hasn't done this, just go out and Google this term. And you'll see that people struggle, right? People struggle with enforcing the rotation of the first access key that's given to somebody, right? With Checkpoint, you can define that to say that I want my first access key to be rotated. And that's how we enforce it. That's how simple it is. I couldn't give a better example of that, right? So this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to bring you as a customer, your IT team, or an expert like Umbrella, all on the same page. And we're trying to reduce the amount of expertise required to make sure that you're running everything correctly, right? That's a stated aim that we have, that you don't need a absolute security expert, because if you just to take that a little further, probably if you have the umbrella will hire them or somebody else will hire them, right? It's hard to hold on to expert resources on cloud. How do we make it operational for you? That's the focus that we try to do.
Great. Thanks, Ashish. Definitely taking control of your security policies is definitely the step one that you need to be looking at when you're on the cloud. Ravindra, a question to you, right? On the other side of the shared responsibility model, when we talk about AWS's responsibility, right? When there are like so many new threats that are coming in, right? So many day zero threats that are available. What is it that AWS is doing, right, to ensure the security of the customers? If you could talk on the other side of the shared responsibility model, that will be great.
Sure. Thanks, Chetan. Glad you brought this question. So first, there is a little bit of a myth, right? That it's not that there were no threats in the non-cloud world, right? The threats were always been there. In fact, with the advent of cloud, while the infrastructures have matured, so are the threat agents. They have matured, right? And there are different threat vectors that comes in. So from an AWS perspective, what happens is you get an advantage in terms of having more better visibility, observability, and ability to respond faster in terms of having automation, right? On AWS, as a part of shared responsibility model for the security in the cloud, right? AWS provides you with necessary controls, configurations, and the set of services that I talked about, which are around 5 dimensions, right? Which are detection, prevention, data protection, compliance, incidents management. So use these set of services, and this is exactly where a partner like Umbrella comes in, and they have understood these patterns, those architecture patterns and baselining and this set of services, how to blend them together to address these things.
Great. Thanks for that, Ravi. Definitely, there are
Sure.
quite a lot of tools in there.
Yeah.
And yeah, implementing them and understanding where they are a best fit is definitely
Exactly, and
something
this
that
is one of the
the
reason
experts
what
are well tuned to do.
yeah, and if you see, this is one of the reason which was pointed out earlier in the discussion, that most of the threat or incident that happens because of misconfiguration.
Right.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks for that. Yeah, Deepak, this one's for you, right? As a partner who provides managed services, right? In the past, in the traditional approaches, we see that usually the security checks are done like periodically, right? Once every few months, or probably in worst case during audit or something like that, right? But that is not feasible anymore, right? Considering the threat surface on the cloud. And more and more the industry is moving towards something called as a continuous compliance, right? You also highlighted that in one of your slides. Could you kind of talk a little bit on the continuous compliance and let us know how that ensures the right security posture for the customers?
Sure, Chetan. So yeah, that's true. Periodic check is also important, but in today's ever-changing environment, you need to ensure that your environment remains continuously compliant, right? And we can achieve that with the help of services like AWS config rules, right? In which we define a state for say for example an AWS service. I like to give an example. Say for example, in your organization, port 80 or port say 22 should not be opened from anywhere, right? That is the rule which should not be created in your AWS environment. So you can define this rule that whenever there is any rule created with port 80 open from anywhere, config rule should detect that. Okay, and then on top of that, we can set up an auto remediation action of reverting that change, right? So that is one of the example. We can set a state, desired state for each of our service. Okay, and whenever there is a deviation from that, we should get an alert for that, and it should auto remediate it. It should go back to the previous state. So that is we can achieve continuous compliance. And we have seen that it's been very helpful for some of our customers.
Great. Thanks for that, Deepak. So from what I understand, what you're talking about is continuously the environment has to be monitored for any kind of a configuration change and automate the response in case something is against the rules that you have configured.
Yeah, exactly. So another, one more step, if I go further, with the tools like guard duty and detective, right? They keep on continuously monitoring your logs, right? And with the ML algorithms, if they find any sort of malicious activity in the logs, they would detect it and give you an alert for that. So this is the kind of proactive monitoring that you can that can help you to remain compliant.
Great, excellent point in that, because you're not sure what are the new threats that are going to come up tomorrow. So having something that that learns on its own and detects the anomaly is definitely good to have in there.
If I could just add on to that, right, because this is a very interesting topic. Cloud is the only environment where you can actually use compliance to ensure security. This is not possible anywhere else, right? Compliance in a data center meant you would do an audit once in a quarter. The auditor would come and say once in a month, once in a year, and say, yes, you're done. But that does not mean that you're going to be secure. Cloud is the only environment where for the first time you can actually use continuous compliance to ensure that you are secure, right? To ensure that you've not done those misconfigurations, right? And just to add to what Deepak was saying, we took it a step higher. We said that if you want to build, like for instance, a custom AWS config, right, which means that you have to start from scratch. It's probably going to take you some time. He said, do away with that, right? Let's write one line of English and you're done. Right. So essentially, in a way, what we're doing is we took everything that AWS has and put an accelerator on top, right? So, but it's very important to understand that this is how you govern your environment. Without these rules, without these configs that you're going to put in, you can never ensure that you're secure. And of course, we correlate that to if you want to comply to like GDPR or ISO 27001 or whatever. So that cross-linking has also been done. But at the heart of it, it is these configurations, right, that you need to ensure that you will. So just wanted to make that point.
Yeah, excellent point in that. And this ties back to your security policy ownership, which you mentioned previously. So prepare your security policy, have that business document, get that converted into a compliance automation process, right? And ensure that your environment is secure. I think you're almost running out of time. I have time for this one.
Chetan, one last question. How detective is helpful? Any one of you, Ravindra, Deepak, or Ashish, from the audience, and then probably we'll conclude.
Vaibhav, I think we already covered that question part of it in the beginning about the detective control.
Okay. So now there's a time where we're planning to announce the winner, 3 winners for today's session. And first of all, thank you so much, all of you, for taking out time and joining this webinar. Hope this webinar is insightful and that would probably help you in enhancing your security posture. And obviously, post that, Umbrella team will connect back with you to understand what are the pain points and gap areas are there to understand and help you out with AWS and Checkpoint security solutions. So thanks once again, everyone. Now I would like to introduce our winners for today's session. One is the first winner is Mr. Amit Handa from Vinculum Solutions. Many congratulations, Amitji, for your participation. And soon you will get your gift at your office step or doorstep. That I'm not sure, but we'll check your availability and we'll catch up soon. Second prize is going to Mr. Samir Kohli from Alt Balaji. Samir, thank you so much for the participation, and look forward to connect with you post this session, and you will also receive your gift very soon. Third gift is going to Mr. Manmeet Sen from Clicks Capital. And Vijay, thank you for the participation, and you have raised a couple of questions very attentively. Thanks for being there, and we look forward to connect with you in the coming days for discussing about your security posture enhancement. So that is it from our side. Thank you so much, everyone, for your participation. Thanks, Ashish, Ravindra, Chetan, Deepak, for taking out time out of your busy schedule and sharing your insights, industry insights, as well as the solutioning, how it is beneficial for our end customers. Thanks, everyone. That's it from our side. Uh, yeah. Anyone of you would like to? Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you all for joining.
Thanks,
Thank you all.
everyone. Thanks. Have a great day. Thanks.
Have a great day. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks.